So this is an example of the state transition function. Well, I'm not going to go over this. This is just an example. If you're looking at the thing, you can read this example. I definitely recommend everybody to read the paper, even if you're skipping through and if you're reading the Ethereum paper, my thing would be to read what you understand, and if you don't get something, just skip that part. You can come back to it and understand it, but read the parts that you understand, and because there's definitely some parts that gets kind of deep and too much, but I think everybody should skim through the Ethereum paper and understand the parts that you can. That's not a wrong way to read it, in my opinion. So, this system would be trivial to implement. It could simply be coded exactly as described using a centralized server's hard drive to keep track of the state. Oh, so this, yeah, I just wanted to highlight how Vitalik acknowledges that this would be simple for a centralized system. So a lot of the things that Ethereum is doing would be really easy to do in a centralized manner. For example, having banks run the servers. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. So the key thing for Ethereum is that decentralization. That's the big aha moment of, oh wow, we can do this Ethereum virtual machine, Turing complete programming. You can program whatever you want on this decentralized computer that's running on nodes all across the globe. It's not a big, it's not a big change if that's centralized. That'd be simple for a centralized server to do a lot of these things. That's just a computer. So the big thing is decentralization there, which is why I like protocols that are decentralized. Like I was talking with DeFi, there's a lot of protocols that are, some are more decentralized than others. And so I always gravitate to more decentralization than less. So let's see our next note here. Consensus systems or mechanisms deserve their own episode. Definitely. Let's just look at this Medium article really quick. There's a lot of different, like, consensus mechanisms are a big thing in crypto, and it's basically getting groups of people to decide on what is true. And so proof of work is one of those consensus mechanisms. Proof of stake is another one. But this article, proof of elapsed time, proof of authority, proof of capacity, proof of activity, proof of burn, delegated proof of stake. So I think we should do an episode just on this article and just finding different consensus mechanisms and how they work and what they're used for.
What would be fun would be to do that and then be able to say, yeah, that's why they ended up where they are, and now we're going to proof of stake.
And the benefits, the pros and cons of different consensus mechanisms. Proof of work, a con of that is high energy consumption. But a pro of it is that it works really well, and it's proven the test of time. So yeah, I think definitely future episode on consensus mechanisms, pros and cons. So we won't go over it too much more today.
Typing. Adding that to our future podcast list. Man, we could be going for a long time.
There's a never-ending amount of information in this space. It's I have not gotten bored of it at all.
Oh my gosh! If anything, it's overwhelming.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much, and it happens so fast. It's a lot of the times I get overwhelmed with, like, how can I keep up with this stuff? And it's difficult. There's a lot of stuff. You're not going to know everything. So that's why it's cool to see all these different groups of people focusing on different aspects of it. And right now I'm kind of trying to take it all in and learn a little bit of everything. And eventually maybe I'll find my niche that I focus in on. But right now I'm trying to soak it all in.
I thought you were going to focus on audit. Is that still a thing?
That's still a thing, yes. But right now I'm allowing everything to try and get a broad focus. but yes, I'm very interested in auditing smart contracts and seeing how that works. So let's find our next comment here. If there are two transactions A and B in a block such that B spends a unspent transaction created by A, then the block will be valid if A comes before B, but not otherwise. So this goes back to how Bitcoin worked with when it's sending these unspent transactions, and that's more of that's not super relevant to what we're talking about today. So I don't really.
Well, I threw a note in, John, because my orientation to this stuff, it's eliminating double entry accounting. Why did you have double entry accounting? Because paper, money, a check was floating about. So you had to enter it. Oh, I've sent that. And then, okay, that comes out of this account. And then I'm going to wait for that to occur. And then I'm going to take it from that account and move it to this account, or I'm going to receive a check. And, it's.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes back to the double spending. It's the same thing that we talked about in Bitcoin. So that's why I didn't want to go too much today. But yes, yeah, very much. Because SHA 256 is designed to be a completely unpredictable pseudo-random function, the only way to create a valid block is simply trial and error, repeatedly incrementing the nonce and seeing if the new hash matches. So I remember we talked about nonce in the Bitcoin episode, and it was kind of difficult for me to explain, but this is a good way of saying it. That function that Bitcoin miners are trying to do to create the next block is essentially trial and error of getting the correct nonce that creates the hash to create the new block. So it's not that it's a difficult computation. It's that the only thing is it's trial and error. It's saying it's running through all these numbers, saying, hey, which is the right one that fits this this difficulty parameter and creates the correct hash. And so it's just trial and error of running through these numbers. And once it hits the right number, it's like, boom, yes, there we go, created the next block. Good to go. I get my Bitcoin reward, and we're on to the next block.
A good explanation of this was something that you had linked is the Gavin Wood yellow paper, because he talks about nonce and validation. What I like about his is he writes in a way that he's not missing or perverting anything. He's, it's not a summary paper.
Here, I linked to this, and I won't read it, but well, actually, no. This shows a good example of
this was a good piece
of what's part of. So this is what's in a Bitcoin block. You have, and this breaks it down by bytes. So you have 4 bytes of the version, 32 bytes of the previous block header hash, 32 bytes of the Merkle root hash, 4 bytes of time, 4 bytes of n bits, which I'm not sure what that is, an encoded version of the target threshold. This block's header hash must be less than or equal to the target hash value set by the network. I'll have to get more into that. And then 4 bytes of the nonce. That's the number that they're constantly. So they have all this information is static, and then they need the correct number through this, an arbitrary number that miners change in order to modify the header hash and produce a hash that is less than or equal to the target hash value set by the network. So the network has this target value, and it says, hey, once you get the number that creates this hash with all of this information that matches this number or is less, then you've created the valid block and you get that Bitcoin reward. So there's plenty more that we could go on with that, but this is a good
this would be something that we could work on mapping. So maybe I'll add that to like map how, because I don't see a good map of how
and I think we can do an episode on specifically on how the cryptography works, because that is something that I'm interested in, like learning more about the specific cryptography, and we could go deep into the SHA 256 and these protocols. I think that could be its own episode.
It's listed.
I forget what this link is. Oh, I added it. Oh, so this is showing the Bitcoin block rewards and kind of that inflation. So in Bitcoin, there's the halving events. So, you know, when it first started, what was the issuance? It was
Yeah, this is
50
really
Bitcoins
more.
per block.
Yeah.
And then currently we're at 6.25 coins per block. And then in 1,086 days, 5 hours, 39 minutes, and 29 seconds, it will decrease to 3.125 coins per block. So that's just showing the issuance rate for time. And so they're saying, I think it's sometime in 2040. Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, we have as one of
They're
our
saying it will reach
discussions.
zero approximately the year 2140 is when the last Bitcoin is when they're approximating that the last Bitcoin will be mined.
Yeah. Yeah, we have this on our future podcast list. Inflation simulation and put
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
And so there's definitely a lot of calculators out there, and this is a good one for that episode.
We should probably publish the list of future podcasts.
Yeah, I think in
Because we
the
want to
forum
invite.
on my website, we should do that. Maybe I'll do different forum posts so that people can comment questions about what they'd like to hear on those episodes, so we can kind of have more content.
Well, and like we said, there may be people that want to come and contribute because they have specialized knowledge. As we
Yeah,
drill into
absolutely.
more and more detail, like right now, we're kind of high level, but over time, yeah, getting people that are actually doing it. So, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right. So, in order to better understand the purpose of mining, let us examine what happens in the event of a malicious attacker. Since Bitcoin's underlying cryptography is known to be secure, the attacker will target the one part of the Bitcoin system that is not protected by cryptography directly, the order of transactions. The attacker's strategy is simple: send 100 BTC to a merchant in exchange for some product, preferably a rapid delivery digital good. Step 2, wait for the delivery of the product. Step 3, produce another transaction sending the same 100 BTC to himself. Step 4, try to convince the network that his transaction to himself was the one that came first. So that's another example of, like I think I did an example of the grocery store. And this one kind of makes more sense. Instead of trying to buy two separate things, he's doing one transaction to buy something and one transaction to send those coins back to himself. And yeah, this goes back to, this is, just him talking about the Bitcoin. At this point in the white paper, he's still talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin works. So he hasn't even really gotten to Ethereum. So we're going to go forward just because we want to get through this to get to more current events. So here's this paragraph now is alternative blockchains. This is him talking about what came before. So he mentions name coin is one of them, colored coins, meta coins. Those are all previous things that kind of led up to, and Vitalik worked on some of these, if not all of them. And so that's something we can explore later on in a history of Ethereum podcast. Let's keep going here. For example, one can construct a script that requires signatures from 2 out of a given 3 private keys to validate. This is an example of a multi-sig, a setup useful for corporate accounts, secure saving accounts, and some merchant escrow situations. So multi-sig wallets are definitely a thing in Ethereum, and that it would be, so like if you and I were to set up a multi-sig wallet, we could put in, let's say we put in 100 ether, and for either of us to spend it, we both need to sign the keys to spend that money. So I can't spend that money, you can't spend that money, but we both have to sign the transaction. And you can do multi-signatures with multiple people. So for example, Gemini, the cryptocurrency exchange, the Winklevoss twins have told stories about setting up their multi-sig wallets and having difficulties with getting bank vaults to put those keys in, so they split it up into multiple shards. They've got multiple signatures to that are governing the exchange wallet, because obviously that's a lot of money. They've got billions of dollars in that exchange, so it needs to be very secure. So they created multi-sig wallets and then put those shards in different bank vaults across the country. But there's a lot of uses for multi-sig wallets. There's one of the things Vitalik has talked about and put many posts about is social recovery wallets, and that being a way, and that's, I also need to do more research on how that works, but there's a lot of talk about multi-sig wallets and different options that you can do for that, for recovering your funds.
I just put in a note, John, because I think it's also relevant there. This is a good use case for many large asset-based uses.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like in my business, being able to say to a business owner, hey, your transition plan is fixed. You, the people you're selling the business to, and right now that's a huge topic because, you know, the seniors, people my age and older, are selling and moving their businesses. The next generation may or may not want to be part of it, and people want a promise that they can trust. And this is to me a sure and efficient way of doing that, to remove all the doubt. So when somebody writes a will, there's this big question mark. Oh, is this going to happen, or how can I really do that? And I think this is a place that lawyers especially should be all over, because it's easy.
Oh, absolutely. And,
I mean,
I'm sure they are.
Well, when we talked about the idea bank, this could be a very simple way of doing that. If you want to be part of it, then everybody signs a multi-sig about what your value is today and tomorrow and next week, right? So
yeah, and one of the things that I know corporations are doing is, like, let's say you have 5 co-owners of a company. You can create a multi-sig that you need 3 out of the 5 to move funds. So if you get three of the owners that say, hey, we want to move these funds, all right, you have a majority. You know, there's lots of different options you can do with this type of thing. It's also something that they're still working on, of figuring out all the things you can do with it.
Is there one out there now that is a DAO, or you know, how hard would this, like, this might be something simple for us to put up that like anybody could use? Has somebody already done that? I hadn't thought about this one.
For multi-sig wallets?
Yeah.
There's a couple. I've never tried to create one, but I know that Gnosis Safe is one of them. And I believe on Argent, you can also create.
Copy that link into the show note, or the page.
So Gnosis is also a decentralized autonomous organization, and they have a wallet. So let's just look at the Safe. Gnosis has been developing blockchain-based fund management since 2017. Let's visit their website.
Make sure you put these links in. Create a new safe that is controlled by one or more multiple owners. You'll be required
So
to pay
we should make one of these one time. I don't want to do it today because I want to create a new wallet that is not something I've used before. And then maybe we can try, and then there would also be some gas fees included. So maybe we can get to that point and then not pay the gas fees. But
I'll pay the gas fees because I think it could resemble something that many people want to use.
Yeah. So
anyway, yeah, copy that in. Do you mind? And the other one, you have done a lot of work, my friend. You have all kinds of good info and links, and so sorry to pause the conversation here and get.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think this is. I think we do an episode on wallets, because there's a lot of wallets out there, and we can talk about wallet security. You know, MetaMask is one of the most popular wallets, but there's a lot of scammers that have found ways to steal. Or it's more social engineering. You know, they'll spoof the website and pretend to be MetaMask support and ask for the private keys. MetaMask will never ask for your private keys, never give out your private key or your seed phrase. that's crypto 101. Never do that. Nobody will ever ask that. If you give that to somebody, they will steal all of your funds. But it happens just about every day. I see posts on Reddit
that
about
is a
people.
conversation. No, this is the second time we've talked about it, but like, so the top of our list after we get done with this one is how to spend your crypto. And I would say, and keep it safe, you know?
Yeah, because unfortunately, there are a lot of scammers in the space that are trying to steal your coins, and you know, unfortunately, they're very creative in finding ways to do that. Which is
so even on this podcast, I'm hesitant to talk about where and how I've got my.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm not going to show you my wallets. That's why I want to create a specific wallet that we can show on here, because I'm not going to show you my addresses.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm thinking. But so anyway, yeah, we need to definitely do that. Let's make that a top priority.
That should probably be our next episode is on wallets, and how to spend your crypto, how to keep it
just
safe.
how to use it. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. So that's multi-sig wallets. Let's go to our next comment here. So Ethereum is,
I thought that was really cool.
Turing complete programming language, which I'll just read the definition here. So I forget which, I think I pulled it off of this Techopedia definition, but the Turing machine itself is composed of 3 theoretical components: a limited set of states, an infinite amount of storage, and a transition function. With these attributes, the Turing machine represents certain boundaries of traditional computation. And so that was, let's just look at this. A system is said to be Turing complete in computer theory if it can be used to emulate a Turing machine, which is a theoretical construct designed by mid-century mathematician and computer scientist Alan Turing. And so those 3 sets are what I just talked about. But so that's what it means to be Turing complete. And Ethereum, the Ethereum virtual machine, is a Turing complete system.
What was the movie that was Turing? I'm looking it up. Oh, The Enigma. Yeah. Good movie.
Yeah, and that goes back to early cryptography of like World War II and World War I, and sending coded messages back and forth, and there's a rich history of cryptography.
So have you been to the museum? So we'll totally digress for a second. Not that that's unusual. Chicago has a World War II submarine that got somehow in our hands, and it's a German sub, and they have the Turing decoder. I forget what it's called, and it's on the sub. It's super, super cool.
So it's at the science, the Museum of Science and Industry, right?
I'm pretty sure. I think it was
so I went there with Kevin and Kara when they came to visit, and we did get to see the sub.
Am I right? Is it a German sub? Or is it our sub with the Turing?
Remember. This was a couple of years ago at this point. But anyway, I don't recall seeing the Enigma machine. I must have missed that, which now I'm bummed about that.
Well, that was to me, that was like the highlight of that tour. So I don't remember if it was off the sub or at the sub or on the sub, or the sub has got it, or we got the sub and we got that with it. Maybe one of our fans. Do we have any? One of our fans can plug that in and help us out. Yeah. But that was.
I've been trying to. I just went to the Field Museum because they have days where it's free for Illinois residents. So I'll have to see when the Museum of Science and Industry has their free museum day, and maybe it's time for another visit.
Maybe we should do an in-person there. The Enigma.
Do a live recording episode at the museum.
Yeah, well, I think all recordings are live, but not together.
That's true.
Okay. Where are we at?
So
you want to keep going? We're only about halfway through. Do you want to pause for the day?
Yeah, let's. I want to just let's go to where he actually starts talking about Ethereum. So we kind of talked about gas fees. I'm going to keep going here. We'll come back to that part. So, all right, financial derivatives are the most common application of a smart contract and one of the simplest to implement in code. The main challenge in implementing financial contracts is that the majority of them require reference to an external price ticker. For example, a very desirable application is a smart contract that hedges against the volatility of Ether with respect to the US dollar, but doing this requires the contract to know what the value of ETH USD is. The simplest way to do this is through a data feed contract maintained by a specific party, e.g. the NASDAQ. Designed so that the party has the ability to update the contract as needed and providing an interface that allows other contracts to send a message to that contract and get back a response that provides the price. So what he's talking about here are oracles, which have been created. So oracles are a way of getting real world data that is not digital and putting that on the blockchain. So anything from, and that has allowed multiple different markets, gambling, and all sorts of things to happen on Ethereum. So for example, there were markets created about the last presidential election. People were betting on whether Trump would win or lose, and an oracle is what would get that information. So the oracle is a trusted party that takes that information, says, yes, Trump lost the election, put it on chain. Now people that were betting on it are going, and so that's a centralization risk, that you're trusting that oracle is being honest. And I think oracles also deserve their own episode, because there's a lot that goes on with oracles and where that type of stuff is headed.
It's on the list.
This is also talking about stable coins, which I list a couple. There's Tether has USDT, Circle and Coinbase have USDC, and then DAI. Those are all stable coins that are pegged to the dollar. Tether USDT, they claim that they have reserved US dollars for every USDT, they have a US dollar in their account to, backing that USDT.
How does that
same
work?
thing with USDC. Yep, go ahead.
How does that work? If I buy 1 million tethers, I didn't give them I didn't give them USDT. So how do they transform?
Well, so they're saying that they're in their bank accounts for every USDT, and there are people that have questioned this and said, do you really have backing for, do you have a US dollar in reserve for every USDT? That has been questioned, and I think there were some lawsuits, and they did prove that they do, but that would be a good thing that we can check on the validity of these.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, in the banking business, they only have to hold their reserve. Years ago, I don't know, present day, was 10 cents. So that's how they make their money, is they put back into the system. So I don't know if you know banking, but if I give them $100 and deposit it, those are deposits. They can loan.
The fractional reserve system.
Well, they can loan. The point is, they make money on the 90 cents they can give out to loans. Right. And that's why we should probably do our own episode on stable coins, because that's a whole thing. And I'm not sure if they're required. I'm not sure what the requirements are. But I know that there was some controversy over Tether at one point. And I know, the US government got involved and did some audits on them. And I believe they passed all of them. It's still around, obviously. But there's different questions about which stable coins are more valid and
but there's multiple options, and there's even more than the three that I've listed.
Okay.
But stable coins, so that's what he's talking about here, and definitely a big part of creating these financial markets on Ethereum is being able to have stable currencies that are pegged to the US dollar. So here he's talking about identity and reputation systems. He mentions Namecoin and saying that a major cited use case is for DNS. Ethereum name service is an existing thing. You can go here, ens.domains, and buy a domain name on Ethereum, so that you're an Ethereum wallet. So I could buy johnwatsa.eth and have that be my wallet. So if I was like, hey, if you want to send me some money, all right, you don't need to know my key, which is just a string of letters and numbers. Just send your transaction to johnwatsa.eth and I'll get that money. So that's possible today. That is something you can do.
That's cool.
So 249,000
$10 US.
What's that?
That's $10 US. And who do they register it with, or is that their own register? Like
I believe
GoDaddy or use Network Solutions.
No, so that goes
Hold
to
on, podcaster.
IPFS.
Could you hear Margie crying?
No.
Oh, you couldn't?
No.
Microphone. She's been laying on the bed behind me.
Oh. I'm surprised my cats haven't come to bother me. They're usually running all around, but so far so good. No, so here the ENS works here. So launch censorship resistant decentralized websites with Ethereum name service. Upload your website to IPFS, which is Interplanetary File System, which is decentralized storage, and and this also deserves its own episode.
I already put it down
to Ethereum, domain names and file services, because then you've got Filecoin and Siacoin that are decentralized file storage, along with this IPFS.
So John, it's really funny about listing all those options and possibilities. Man, I remember in 98, 99, it'd be a useful exercise to go back to two periods of time I lived through, the late 70s, early 80s. So when I was in high school in the late 70s, the first computers hit, and we had in the math department a computer, dot matrix printer. Nobody used it, right? If we used it, we created if-then loops that spit paper out of the machine, either with ink on it or without. It was crazy. And then in high school, I was in a electronics class, and we had the first Apple, what was that called? And it read tapes. So you played from a tape recorder, like a legit cassette tape player. And that's how that worked. And then, and then came in that, first 80, 82, 83 was that first PC, and then Apple. And as you saw all the options, there were just tons of options. You'd go to the store, and I was in retail at a small place, and every day they were giving us something new to sell. So it's just like this. Well, big brands had their way back in that day. GE, right? Panasonic. And they kind of made their way into the market. And then they became household names, and they stayed. Well, then the same thing happened with HTML. And now the same thing's happening now. I think it would be really interesting to use history as our teacher. The automotive, right? Did I already say this in one of the other podcasts? In 1905, thereabouts, there were 560, I think it was 564 automotive companies registered in Detroit, all in Milwaukee Junction. Well,
I didn't know that.
We only have a few. And the question is, and I think part of this podcast is helping people sort through that mess, not everybody's going to be a success. And
yeah, well, and a lot of people compare it to the .com, when the internet first started becoming popular, the .com bubble of, there are all these different companies, and then you see a couple of them have lasted, and usually it's the ones that can redefine themselves over and over again to maintain relevance. So there's definitely a lot of and a lot of these, even you could go back to the Industrial Revolution and look at all these different things. Any kind of major change to industry, you see these patterns continuing. So yeah, right now crypto is in that space where there are tons of new ideas and new companies and new protocols, and eventually a lot of these will probably not exist, and there will be the winners and the losers. But yeah, right now is that boom of just seeing a ton of new ideas.
Maybe we could post up Don and John's winners and losers each episode. Like we'll just keep and we'll just do a 1 minute. Hey, and we can literally put a left-hand column and a right-hand column and say, here's winners and losers based on what we know this week. And over time, obviously, we'd have more losers than winners. Does that already exist too?
There's already multiple lists of, I can't think of, oh wait, no, I have,
well, that's fine. Then we can still review other people's
there's definitely lists of the top DeFi projects, and so that's definitely, I think I have, so here I'm talking IPFS, Filecoin, Siacoin. I think I have a link in one of my comments.
I got us distracted, so
that's all right. I think we're almost wrapping up here. So this is saying the denomination. So Ether can be broken down into the Fini, the Zabo, and the Y, or Way. I've never heard anybody reference Fini or Zabo, but I have heard the Way.
I was reading those yesterday because they were all links from the stuff, and super cool on how it evolved, because those were all the evolutions. How, at least that's what he said, were the evolutions.
Well, yeah, those are the names. Nick Szabo is one of the guys, and Hal Finney is one of the guys that people suspect might have been Satoshi Nakamoto. He's the person that did the first Bitcoin transaction, or received the first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi. So I just wanted to, and I know we were supposed to end at 8:45. Do you have a couple of minutes? We can finish up this paper, or do you got to go?
No, I'm good. I thought you had to get on your.
Oh no, that's at 10. So I've gotten an hour.
I'm looking at 3 minutes. I'm looking at 3 minutes to 10 Eastern. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm an hour behind you.
Well, yeah, go ahead. So, let's
yeah, we're almost done with this paper, and then we can get on to the really fun stuff now that we've hit the two papers. So this part is talking about the issuance. The two main choices in the above model are: 1, the existence and size of an endowment pool, and 2, the existence of a permanently growing linear supply as opposed to a capped supply as in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins mined. After that, no Bitcoin. And then they say that fees will secure the network. That's debatable, but it won't happen in my lifetime. So who knows?
Yeah, the last Bitcoin, I think it was 2140.
2140, yep, is when they're estimating.
We'll both be gone.
Yeah. But Ethereum does not have a hard cap. So and I'm going to refer you guys to go check out the Bankless podcast about ultrasound money with Justin Drake, because he really models out the numbers, and just an excellent episode. If you want to be bullish about ETH, go listen to Bankless, ultrasound money, Justin Drake. Look up those terms, and you'll find the episode. Maybe I'll link it here when I find it, but they really do a great job of modeling where ETH issuance is now and where he sees it going in the future with Ethereum 2.0. But this is
yesterday's. I was listening to podcast 164, ETH Hub, and they were talking about it as well yesterday, and they're talking about was it ETH2 and Beacon, and they were talking about that, and they were very much like, it's not going to have an effect on the value of ETH, meaning people are scared, and they're saying that probably isn't going to be a thing. I don't know. I don't have an opinion.
I think like the ultrasound money meme that Justin Drake and the Bankless guys do is very much saying that not only is ETH going to be deflationary, but it's like significantly so when we change to ETH2, that the issuance is going to drop a lot, and it's going to become a deflationary asset. But yeah, Anthony Sassano and Eric Connor of the Into the Ether, that's another one of my favorite podcasts. I definitely recommend Bankless and Into the Ether, both two of my favorite podcasts for sure. So this is kind of Vitalik talking about why so I'll just read this part. The justification of the endowment pool as follows: if the endowment pool did not exist and the linear issuance reduced to 0.217 to provide the same inflation rate, then the total quantity of Ether would be 16.5% less. And so each unit would be 19.8% more valuable. Hence, in the equilibrium, 19.8% more Ether would be purchased in the sale. So each, you guys can read that. It's, me reading it is probably not that helpful.
Well, I think it's good because some people might just be listening on the road or something.
I just, like, even myself, I was like, I'm losing it reading it by myself. So it's probably not helpful to read. But it just goes to show that it was very thought out from the beginning of the issuance, and the Vitalik did the numbers, and he's like, this makes sense. Ethereum doesn't need a hard cap. It's still, Bitcoin is sound money. Ethereum is going to be ultrasound money, which I think is true. And then I think I just have a couple more comments here. Note that in the future, it is likely that Ethereum will switch to a proof of stake model for security. Again, that was built into the very existence of Ether. And we are well on our way to that reality. A lot of people thought it, would happen sooner. What Ethereum has been going for 6 years now, 2015. Yeah, so it's 6 years into the network. These things take time. I think the core development team they've got a good roadmap now. The merge from ETH1 to ETH2 is planned to take place at the end of this year, if not early 2022. And then there's a couple more phases. So that would be phase 1. Then there's phase 2. So there's a couple more phases till Ethereum is complete. And that's the thing. A lot of people say, like, Bitcoin is like 80% complete, where Ethereum is like 30% complete. And I'm pulling those numbers out of my ass, but that's a criticism. People say that Ethereum, has a lot of work to do, which is true, but that work, it's going to happen, and I think I like Ethereum better than Bitcoin personally, but they're both relevant for sure.
Yeah, I think that the Ethereum is, for all the reasons that we've talked about, all the pieces of the puzzle,
here's the thing showing
you're replacing, when you really think about it, because you were talking about, everybody's moving so fast, and yet it's moving slowly. And I think that there's kind of a goodness in that. Like, you're trying to replace a set of industries that have been around since mankind first started on the planet. It's trade. It's basic barter and trade. What are you willing to trade? Well, there's an intermediary function of trade, and it used to be cash or rocks or marbles or gold, and now we're doing it to digital. If anybody thought that was going to go fast, I think that's funny.
Well, the other thing is, like, fast is a relative term.
It is. In 6 years, look at what they've done. I mean,
Right.
I really dove into this back in 2015 and 16, and I was watching, and Ethereum was like no different than anybody else that was beginning. And I mean, I did hundreds of hours of work. MIT was all over this, Fidelity, Prudential, and I was like, yeah, this is a thing. And then I realized it's all vaporware. It's wishful thinking, it's ideas, and have just sat back. Well, now it's not. Now it's you can actually do things with it. Somebody like me can do things, and I couldn't before. So I'm grateful for all the people that have spent the time to get it going. And now let's giddy up. Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
still.
absolutely.
I mean, I'm guessing that I've got 20 years of this to go. I'm looking forward to it. Let's
Yeah, I mean,
build
in the grand
cool
scheme of
stuff.
things, 6 years is nothing like that. It's brand new. So I can't even imagine what this space is going to look like in 10 years from now.
So there was an article back in 15 that got me started. Oh, my bad. Sorry. It's Aunt Linda pinging me. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the article I read back in 2015 said by 2025, 80% of all accounting jobs will be eliminated. Okay, last check, nobody's been eliminated. In continuous improvement.
Pushed back a couple of years, but I don't know.
Yeah, so in
years,
continuous improvement, the reason I went to the continuous improvement land, just to make the connection, is in 2015, 16, I was still hard into HR, benefits, labor, financial services, all that, and pounding everything out. So you start reading these articles, and I started to prepare myself thinking, well, somebody's going to have to lay the groundwork to give the legacy in a simple way to then replace it. And, looking forward, 2025 might be out of reach. That's not going to happen. But when we think about 2030, 2035, completely turning everything upside down, 2050, but it's not if, it's when. And I think it's cool.
I mean, cool. If you had told me in 2010 that in 2021 everybody would be working from Zoom, like most people would have thought that was insane.
It is.
They would have been like, what is Zoom?
And Zoom just went public, a year ago, December? Right? I mean,
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I'm just right in the middle of it's crazy. So anyway.
So here, I did find this website, the ethmerge.com. I did link it in here. And this shows the transition. So it's showing currently we have the proof of work chain and the proof of stake chain running concurrently. And then there's going to be this merge. And then eventually it's just becomes one chain.
That's a beautiful visual. I like it.
This website has a lot of good details.
Where'd you link it?
It's right here. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the mining centralization. So this is the paragraph where Vitalik is saying, even in 2013, this problem is arguably worse. As the time of this writing, the top 3 mining pools indirectly control roughly 50% of processing power in the Bitcoin network. So he was saying that that's an issue back in 2013, and we looked at the things showing that China has, what was it,
50,
65, 70% of the
no, when we looked, I thought it was 52%. I remember the power outage, and
it was definitely more than that.
Was it?
But that's just showing that has become more of an issue as time has gone on for Bitcoin, and that's certainly a criticism against the decentralization of Bitcoin. But that's just going to show that was something that Vitalik was seeing as an issue back in 2013. And then here's the list. Like, I remember the Bitcoin white paper had like 6 or 7 references, and now Vitalik has 21 references here. I'd love to. I've read some of these, like the Decentralized Autonomous Corporations Bitcoin Magazine. That was actually a post by Vitalik, because he started Bitcoin Magazine, and that was one of the things he was writing articles on. The other thing is, we we could do a whole bunch of episodes on Vitalik's own website.
Which I was
Vitalik.me.
on. Yeah. He's got a
It's
ton of good stuff.
a wealth of information on there. He's like part philosopher, part economist. I think he's one of the greatest thinkers of our time, and that's that's what he's a good programmer as well, but he's definitely solidified himself as a thinker in the space, and that's his website is just got a ton of good information. The other website that I want to say that I don't use enough, but I was looking at it, I was like, man, there's so much good stuff on here, is the Ethereum, just ethereum.org.
Yeah. And
Lots
the
of
other
good
one
information
was,
on here.
you had Ethereum research. Research, that was one of the links. So I've saved that as a bookmark, and I found that to be, it ended somewhere around 2017, 18, but it had all the conversations between people about how they were arriving at decisions over about a year or so's time. And it's very cool.
I don't remember linking that one, but yeah, I mean, there's so many websites. But yeah, I think we can pull a lot of stuff from ethereum.org. They've got this learn tab. I wanted to look at this. So what are DAOs? This is great. So DAOs are an effective and safe way to work with like-minded folks around the globe. Think of them like an internet native business that's collectively owned and managed by its members. They have built-in treasuries that no one has the authority to access without the approval of the group. Decisions are governed by proposals and voting to ensure everyone in the organization has a voice. There's no CEO who can authorize spending based on their own whims, and no chance of a dodgy CFO manipulating the books. Everything is out in the open, and the rules around spending are baked into the DAO via its code. So that's, we're going to do an episode on DAOs, and it's just,
a DAO that would be great so I don't mean to be political here, but the whole COVID, I'm a very skeptical person, and I have really hard time finding facts and details. As a guy around healthcare for decades, I found the same problem, and it seems amazing to me that so much stuff is not transparent. Wouldn't it be great to build a research DAO?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see if can crypto help with misinformation, and because obviously that's an issue. But would it be amplified by, a lot of crypto is anti-censorship. So does that help with misinformation, or does that make it worse? I'm interested to see how that type of stuff plays out. And because I do think it's very relevant.
Well, I think what is interesting is the philosophical part of like a Vitalik or other people I've met. That piece of it is relevant. Being able to say, well, how do we make this true, good, and beautiful? In my world, godly, something that says, yeah, everybody can benefit from this. This isn't something that a person owns or is uniquely benefiting. They can benefit in some fashion. Everybody has to eat, so we want that. But how do we make it so that it works? And I think research is fundamental. Imagine research being no different. Imagine all the programming that goes on to build this being in research for the COVID.
Well, and I can certainly see,
like as an example, because I've been around research. I mean, research and researchers. I'm not a researcher, but the old team that I had, there's a lot of barriers to doing research. You got to be academically proven. You got to have blah blah. And I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm like, is there a DAO for research?
So Gitcoin grants. I think there could be a similar thing for research. So democratic public goods funding for the 21st century. Gitcoin grants sustain Web3 projects with quadratic funding. So it's very much a funding mechanism for a lot of these protocols. And I could see a similar thing for healthcare research, where people that want, you want certain issues funded, you donate, and these are some of the projects that have been funded through Gitcoin. So you can see 1.38 million, and this is just this one round of Gitcoin grants.
Dude, that's so cool. Shoot me that link, and I will put it in our future show notes, because that would be a good,
This down at the bottom.
That might
So,
be a good way for us to think of using what we're trying to build here, is if we post up future podcasts, and one of the topics is research grant DAO, then we could get people who are interested, both legacy people who have the resources, the skill, the ability, but not the programming, right? Because that's really what you got to do, is you got to join a group of researchers who want to break away and do something different with the technology. And that's not new. That's always been that way. And so maybe we help build those, get those things started, get those conversations going. Conversations for crypto.
Exactly. That's what we're here for. So I know we kind of rushed through this paper, but we really want to get to some of the new and current stuff. But I really think it's important to have a foundation of understanding the basics of the Bitcoin white paper and the Ethereum white paper. Those are just monumental, key moments in this industry. So that's why we kind of started with those, and now the exciting stuff can happen with our next episodes, where we can really dig into what's going on currently in the space, and show some of these protocols and applications, and really start to dig into stuff. But I think this is a good foundation, and I look forward to more conversations. And check out my website, johnwatson.com, where I have the forum for conversational crypto, which by the time this is released will have been live for weeks. And yeah, I think we've got a good
And you want to invite everyone to participate. It is a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have these papers,
everybody
in the forum, so you can add comments and questions, and we want to have a conversation with the community, and have you guys talking about what you want to have us talk about, and we'll use that forum to kind of guide our episodes, and invite other people on to the podcast with us, and just keep talking about what's happening.